everybody, welcome back to the channel and more Blood and Plunder here as we get to the last few of the new British factions, or then new British factions that were in Raise the Black. Today we're taking a look at the British Militia, which has all kinds of options for us, and it's a lot to digest with a lot of possibilities and variations we could do for the list. So we start off, it's actually got fewer special rules than some of the other lists here with just the two. But an interesting sort of departure from a lot of the typical rules. Here we get once per turn a single English or British unit in the force may reroll a fatigue test without spending a fortune point. That's huge, right? Fortune points are always at a premium. We only get typically the 3, sometimes a 4th. So really being able to do this essentially once a turn, right, is absolutely crucial. We can free up the fortune points for other likely more important uses than burning a reroll on that. Also then with different uses of command points and things like that, right, we should be able to keep fatigue tests in check throughout the game as long as things aren't going catastrophically wrong. Another one here though is just a weird little tweak, but interesting one nonetheless. So if we have any African warrior units, they actually cannot have bows in this force. So just keep that in mind. Nothing too major there, but yeah, no like major wow factor in the force special rules. Nothing too crazy. Although again, we do get that awesome free reroll, so we're going to take that for sure. Now, where this force does bring in the variations is with the force options, but we'll get to that in just a second. So your core units, not too much to choose from here, but again, it's a militia-based list for the British colonies, right? So makes sense. We have English militia and provincials as our core, and then just supported really where we're spoiled for choices with all kinds of units here that we can really use however we're building the force and whatever our focus really wants to be. We can do a little bit of everything depending on how many militia and provincial units we bring to then field the support units, but we can also get more focused on certain things as well. So there's several more militia choices out here. Interesting that the Frontier Militia is also support. Would have been interesting to see that maybe as a core unit as well, but that's all right. Frontier Militia, Militia Cavalry, and Militia Artillery Crew are in the support section there. So again, we have access to cavalry, which is useful. All right, obviously much more flexibility there. We can bring artillery crew. We get sailors as well, right? Sea dogs, able seamen. We also have support in a very good unit, and that's the British regulars. So not going to say no to them. But we're also spoiled with some of the other choices out there. So we could bring in boss lopers from the Dutch, also Jamaican privateers, the native braves, right? Young braves. And then also, as it mentioned, right, with the force special rule, could go African warriors. Just again, they don't have bows, so something to keep in mind there. But right, we get more militia and kind of rounding out just like regular British troops, then bringing in some other aligned nations here, right? The Jamaican privateers, the boss lopers for the Dutch, but then we have a big selection of natives as well. So we can, again, depending on game size and just how many support units we want to field, we can go very thematically with just more like British troops, bring in some foreign troops, or just also bring in some natives, or really just focus on one of those areas. So there's just a lot to digest with those options. Speaking of that, command options, any standard British commander, but then also Francis Nicholson, James Moore, Benjamin Church, or Reed Elding. So spoiled for choices on commanders there. Obviously these special characters, the named characters, are going to add all kinds of other fun variations and unique abilities. So there's a lot to digest there. So when you're picking this list, you're going to need to sit down for a second and really figure out what you want to do with it. But wait, there is more. We talked about force options. It's always cool when we see this in the game. Again, Blood and Plunder really spoils you, the player, with just sheer variety of options. You got the different nations, you got the different factions within the nation, and then, depending on your character choices or command choices, that can sometimes drastically change the list as well with some of the rules that they bring. But then also some forces have force options, which within that force choice here, this British militia choice, really lets us theme it even further. So we could go Caribbean militia. So the Jamaican privateers and sea dogs become core in the force, right? So now we have a nice selection of 4 core units, which then lets us ideally, have a little bit more variety, and then we can fill out the rest with, again, the other remaining support units. Similarly, we can go North American militia. So Indian fighters or frontier militia become core units in the force. English militia may exchange the drilled rule for the elusive special rule to fight a little bit more like the natives, so that's actually kind of cool. Cavalry, if we want to go that route, this force may take militia cavalry at as a core unit if it includes at least 2 militia cavalry and its commander is mounted, right? So really will change the way how the force plays there. You'll have a much more mobile force, of course, and being able to do what those forces, or sorry, those units are capable of as far as how to engage in combat and move around and just what their overall effect is. But then also your commander, right? So that's going to change the play a little bit as well. And then finally, pirate hunters, provincials become support units, and sea dogs and able seamen become core units in the force, which then really lets you take this list out onto the water a lot easier than just having the quality sailors as support units, right? So many wonderful choices here. There's really, like, we could keep this video going for like an hour just really hammering out all the various choices. I think once we're done with all the factions at some point, we'll start going back through and then like coming up with some good lists for those at different points levels, and even maybe look at like what would make sense if you're trying to take this into like more of a competitive field with a lot of these lists. But let us know in the comments, guys. Have you run the British Militia? What is your favorite variation of it? Do you just kind of run it as is? Do you go with one of the force options? How do you feel it's more effective? Of course, then we also have to factor in what do the different commanders, the generics versus the various named characters also bring to the force. So there's a lot to digest in this one. So let us know in the comments, guys. Like and subscribe. We will have more Blood and Plunder for you very soon. Thanks for watching.